3, 2, and go on 1.
I think we're live now.
Yep, we're live.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today's a really big day. We're pretty excited. The Cosmos Hub 4, the Stargate mainnet just launched, and there's a lot of excitement. We're making blocks, and this is the white paper has been delivered, so that's really exciting, and even more. So we've got Dean and Rowland here from Agoric, and you guys were a big part of making it more than just what the white paper had promised, I think, right?
We were a big part of the IBC piece. That was our biggest contribution. The rest were cheerleaders, right?
And so I'm Gavin from Figment, and Clay is here from Figment.
Hey. How's it going?
I'm Dean.
I'm Rowland.
Clay, I don't know if you want to give a few words.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, this is a big day. The white paper has been delivered, but this conversation is mostly about Agoric and about how Agoric is planning to be the smart contract platform to accelerate DeFi. And I know, Dean, you and I believe Mark have been in this space for a super long time, longer than I've been alive. So I know that you kind of go over this a lot in your talks with other folks, but I think it would just make sense for people who aren't fully aware of the Agoric project to give like a brief overview of like the history of smart contracts, just to kind of set the foundation for the use case of Agoric.
Sure. So we are doing a Cosmos SDK Tendermint-based layer 1 chain coming out later this year for doing smart contracts accessible to a lot more programmers, accessible, implementable in a secure version of JavaScript, so that the millions of programmers out there that would do smart contracts if only they could are now able to do so. I worked on the first production smart contract back in 1989. So this is before blockchain. And for us, so smart contracts are really about software enforcing the terms of a contract-like arrangement between third parties. And so it predates blockchain by a lot. There are lots of examples in the world from before blockchain. So eBay, PayPal, Venmo, Airbnb, much of the negotiation, Uber, Lyft, a bunch of Amazon, high frequency trading, a lot of those, no human was involved in two third parties collaborating or cooperating in some way, even though often they don't know each other, they'll never meet each other, they might not even like each other, and yet they successfully cooperate. And then blockchain brings integrity to the platform. The problem with smart contracts pre-blockchain is there'd be someone running a trusted third party in the middle. So they're standing there, whether it's Airbnb or StubHub or whoever, ready to scrape off 35% of the profits in order for two people that have otherwise nothing to do with them to actually be able to cooperate. And that means they're controlling the entire arrangement. They're enabling what features you can do. They've got control of custody, all those kinds of things. And what blockchain brings, my gold standard for blockchain is multiple machines, validators, in different jurisdictions and different administrative domains, voting to agree on facts, how much money is in my account, choices. Did I cancel my order before you shipped it, or did you ship it before I canceled my order? And those have to happen in an order, in some sequence. And all of these hundreds of machines across the globe decide and agree on whether my cancel happened first or whether the shipping happened first. And then finally, the result of computation, right? Did the right amount of fees or taxes or whatever get taken out and get sent to the right amount to the right parties? And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so we have a marketplace that's controlled or enforced algorithmically, and if there needs to be any sort of intervention, that comes from a distributed set of parties that are disinterested, at least in the specific arrangement. They're more interested in preserving the whole of the market, I guess, in this case.
Yes, exactly. And also, importantly, it's permissionless. That's pretty crucial to actually be a big part of what makes it so you can remove the trusted third party in the middle is that the system is permissionless. The system is disinterested in your particulars, as you say, right? That their incentive is to make sure things operate correctly so that you can make arrangements with people you want to do business with or cooperate with, and have the system enforce those terms. Yep. And if that arrangement you don't like, you can implement your own, you can deploy your own, and you could have a different deal with somebody else.
So we've seen, like, historically, like, this kind of build it and they'll come narrative, and we've seen a bit of it around Ethereum, where they built this kind of really rough thing, and then all of a sudden there's this explosion of development, and so others step up and say, "Oh, we can do it better than this, right?" But then they build stuff, and now it seems like most of what they're building, maybe it's too soon to say this, but most of what they're building are just bridges to Ethereum. Instead of actually like building their community within. So what's going on here? And
right. You may be surprised to know that I know some libertarians. And there was always this, there was, a naive sense of, build it and they will come, right? The marketplace will provide any number of these things. And my response to the market will provide is, no. The market is a place where you can provide. Right, innovation happens. It's not that the market does anything for me. What the market enables is for third parties to permissionlessly come in and do something for me, that I find valuable. And so we are both building a place where people can permissionlessly come in and do their thing, but we're also doing some things there that are actually interesting and valuable to people. Right. They're
building a market. You're building a platform for marketplaces, but you're also actually building marketplaces.
That's right. Yeah. We originally were expecting to just do a platform. This is when we were first getting into it, and we knew that solving security was hard, making it so you could do pluggable development and build on each other's work is hard. We were, into doing that and thinking about how does all this happen when we realized that no, Ethereum is working right now because it is a place that multiple people go, right? If you had staking derivatives magically inside of Cosmos Hub, it would do you very little good. Well, before yesterday, it would do you very little good because now you've got this thing and nobody, and you can't sell it to anyone. Or you've got this thing and you can't make something that wraps it up or buy insurance about it or use it to power a loan in some other service. You need an ecosystem of multiple businesses cooperating in order for any of those businesses to take off. So it's not just, the network effect of a chain. You need the network effect of an economy. And it is the case that again, until yesterday, that was pretty much only available on Ethereum, right? They built it and a few people trickled in. They didn't come in masses, but a few people trickled in. But it sort of got enough that they were there and they could work with each other, and people got excited about the realization they could do transactions that talk to multiple businesses. With IBC launch, and by the way, I am totally honored, and I don't know if there's an accident. I'm totally honored that we end up here on Stargate Day, right? But with IBC launch, wait, okay, are you going to show off logos? Oh wait, that's different.
I've got a different one, sweatshirt.
With IBC launch, now suddenly, I was thinking about this the other day when I was getting ready for this, and when I was getting ready for the talk last night, that suddenly we go from all these little islands of blockchain, right, to not just a little bit of connection, because the hub always talked about, we could connect to your zone, and everyone would think about it of, okay, so my zone could connect to the hub. What do I do with that? Okay, there's assets over there. Maybe that's interesting. But no. It's with IBC, forget the hub. Now any chain could connect to any chain. And that means that two chains that I have no idea about could end up being the center of some very important universe to people that I've never met, right? And the hub means that now it's easy for chains to connect to each other, in the star pattern, and there's lots of reasons for that. But the nice thing is I don't need their permission. I can connect to Sommelier, I can connect to Peggy, I can connect to Enigma, I can connect to all these things with nobody getting to interfere with that. As long as the two parties agree. And
but this wasn't possible before dynamic IBC, right? Like this is what you've worked on, right?
Well, so dynamic IBC for people, right? When we first did IBC, it's like, okay, two chains on either side can make an agreement and now they can connect. But IBC is layered. That's sort of great. Now TCP works, but there's a protocol above that, and they also need to deploy code on either side to talk that protocol. So everyone gets transfer for free. We included that application protocol in the shipping IBC 1.0. But that's just, the baby, lowest, simplest possible important thing you could do with IBC. If you want to move, proof of location or, proof of credentials or some meeting arrangement or secret keys for doing for doing private messaging, that's a new protocol. You deploy it on one side and now it's your brand new protocol and there's nobody talking to it. So DIBC, dynamic IBC, was just the realization that if we wanted the rapid innovation, the big thing that loose coupling does is it means two parties can make any arrangement they want and they're good. We don't need a global agreement on a protocol after that low level, after the low level IBC. And that's hugely important for unleashing innovation. But it's even better if you don't need to agree with anyone. If you can just, I'm going to build my thing. I'm going to build the counterparty contract that can run on your chain. And now all you need to decide is, yes, I'll take it. You don't have to implement a bunch of logic, there. And it's even better if a few people on your chain can say, yes, I'll take it, right? And it's not that everyone has to agree. You don't need a governance vote. You don't need to wait 2 months to turn it on. It's just, I want some of that. I'll go ahead and, get it deployed onto my chain so I can talk that proof of location protocol. And then two applications on the Agoric chain can do proof of location and the other guys haven't opted in. That's fine.
So this is what scared me about, like, as a Cosmos Hub stakeholder, this is kind of what scared me in the early days. Was I realized, not early days, this wasn't too many months ago, that I was kind of like, well, why would anyone connect to the hub for what the reason that the hub exists for, as a means of moving value and data throughout the Cosmos ecosystem? That's what the hub's vying to be. There's no, as far as we know, there's really no other purpose for the hub, and it doesn't need to exist for the ecosystem to exist. Well, I thought, oh, Agoric's ready to do this. With you have to, if the hub was going to do this, there would have to be a governance proposal for every single, and a software upgrade for every single time you want to connect a new chain with a new set of logic or whatever, some other new innovation. It's going to be crawling compared to Agoric. So it was great relief to me to see that what you guys are doing with your chain is also going to be involved in the hub.
Yeah. Well, so our code won't be running on the hub, but obviously we'll be connected. So one of the things that is true about innovation is you want fast movers and slow movers, right? There's sort of, so the slow movement provides you some framework on which you're building the fast movement. Right?
Scaffolding, right?
And there are limits to how slow you want, right? To me, it's sort of mind-boggling that ERC 720, ERC 20 took as long as it took to emerge on Ethereum. That ERC 721 is still maybe kind of, those are huge enablers of framework that are, no system, they're like a few methods and we just need to agree on it. But a few methods and we just need to agree on it is also a little too fast. The ERC 20 world's a little too slow. What you want is something that can move with all deliberate speed, but not a little too chaotic. So it is actually probably going to be good that the hub that the hub will be an anchor point, partly because it has some inertia and movement. You can do an astonishing amount with just transfer provided by the hub, not because the hub is providing key services, but it's providing a stable place for me to go to connect to some other zone. And when we were thinking about I've got my zone and I can connect to the hub, that's sort of not very interesting. When I think about I've got my zone and I can connect to all the services that connect to the hub, now suddenly that's an explosion of opportunity there that I sort of get some arm's length buffering by the $5 billion of momentum in the hub, right? Maybe $6 million today.
And you're not paying rent to do it either.
I'm not paying rent to do it. I mean, I'll pay some fees, okay, but those should be. We all expect that the fees will be important but marginal from the point of view of the value delivered. And then with gravity, gravity and the fact that we don't actually need gravity, right? So gravity provides this bridge to Ethereum. One of the things I characterize about all of this is, we, like others, are launching a mainnet during the next year. Unlike 2 days ago, we get to launch not in a vacuum. And there was this demo day in January of all these people demoing applications. The number of them that could describe their value prop or what they succeed at as either relying on Gravity, using Gravity, or doing some other thing like that would provide, where their audience was an audience that was available over IBC or via one of the multiple paths to the Ethereum audience, was just enormous. I mean, that sort of suddenly, wow, there's a real pent up demand for this connectivity. And so, we get to launch in this world of services, and back to that thing about a place to deploy. So now we don't have to start out as a place that has a lot of capital, though that's nice. That'll be nice to have a bunch of liquidity. It's demonstrated that it's now straightforward to pull some of that capital over from the existing legacy place, which is Ethereum, right? And pull that capital over, move it over to new economies on IBC or new applications on IBC in order to have them not be an island, but exist connected to I would say the mainland, but still all, we're all still all, DeFi, as exciting as it is still relatively small compared to the rest of the economy. So connect to the rest of that world. And now we've got, these shared pools of collateral that we can tap into, these shared pools of capital.
So when I think of what the hub does, when I think of the Cosmos SDK, like when you think, okay, so when we have Kava, when we have Terra, we have all these, we call them Cosmos-based networks. They all operate off of, they originate with the Cosmos SDK. It's kind of this way to easily launch a new chain with an application-specific chain or whatever. You can use this SDK as a means of, it's almost, they're like copies of the Cosmos Hub, but they've been modified to work for whatever specific application. It means that they don't have to start from scratch to have a consensus layer and all these other things that are really kind of dangerous to tinker with. We've got this battle-tested way of having running a new network, and then we also have this promise now of being able to connect them all together. So when I think of Agoric, I think of it as being another layer of being now. Maybe I don't want to launch a new chain and gather up a whole bunch of validators. I just want to launch my hot new DeFi application right out of the box and fast and securely. We see all this rapid iteration on Ethereum, but it's not even a matter of if, but when these contracts get drained. It's always this kind of a game of musical chairs where everybody's seeking this yield, right, to get to get in there quickly, get a whole bunch of money, and get the hell out before you lose all your money. But what I'm seeing with Agoric is, the next hot new thing could just be launched the way that a new Cosmos-based network is launched, except as an app on Agoric. So this is probably more of the focus than maybe trying to get relay transaction volume or whatever. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's well put. And if you're a developer deciding where to build, as you say, a lot of people building an application aren't going to want to deal with validators, aren't going to want to have to spin up their own blockchain. And so we want to provide a place where you can benefit from the security of our platform and also of Tendermint and knowing that is going to function the way we all know it does, but still spin up your own application without having to build a blockchain and bring in validators.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is important. So, one of the characterizations we make about building smart contracts in our model is, in Ethereum, in these other systems, you're pretty much sort of, you're almost starting from scratch. Every application is its new little silo, right? Now, obviously, as you say, Cosmos SDK,
right?
You can start a chain not from scratch because you've got a bunch of the building blocks, but they aren't about your application.
Yeah.
In our model of the world, and the way that systems that have exponential growth of developers have succeeded, Ruby on Rails, NPM, React.js, Vue.js, all these things, is I get to use components that were built by other people to build my application. And more than that, I get to deploy into an environment that I can connect to those services. And so it's not just that I can, so there's definitely folks where I'm going to build my application and I don't need anything novel in the consensus. So why am I standing up another zone? I might as well run on an existing zone that's already got that solved because I just don't need it. Right. I'm selling magic axes. There's nothing, that needs a new staking token for that. I just need to be able to take money and deliver you an NFT. Right. But then there's the ones where a couple of an example of Sommelier is adding stop loss transactions for liquidity in AMMs on Ethereum, right? In the Agoric AMM, well, okay, oracles are a plug-in piece that I don't have to implement, right? Threshold, logic is a plug-in piece I don't have to implement. So a few lines of JavaScript code, I can deploy a contract that, grabs the oracle, says when the price crosses here, then go to that contract where I have my liquidity and pull it back out, right? Extract my liquidity from that AMM. And so now I've got
the Legos, right?
Yeah,
when we talk about DeFi Legos, they're a lot more rudimentary Legos with a lot more mortar in between when we think about Ethereum, I think. Than if we think about what the future of Agoric is, right?
Yeah, they talk about Legos, but there the idea is they realized I can write a transaction that talks to multiple businesses in the same transaction. That's great, but the only way they've got of actually sharing work and building on each other's work is copying the source code and munging it in. And they've had as many losses as they've had successes. The successes are huge, right? Uni incorporated the compound governance contract or Uniswap into producing Uni, and that got huge traction. But DeForce did the same thing, and they lost $25 million. So do you feel lucky? Right? And so that's one where I want not a vault mechanism that I'm going to copy code out of, or a loan mechanism that I'm going to copy code out of. What I want is to grab the plugin governance module that they used, npm install, contract governance 2/3, right? And now I've got this mechanism and I parameterize it with, here's my token that you're going to use for governance. And I plug it in and say, here's the, governable parameters, go. Right. And now I didn't have to be an expert at voting. I didn't have to worry about, I just have to provide some parameters in order to say how I wanted to use that component. It's already been battle tested. It's been security reviewed, all those kinds of things. And my new application that needs governance and would like to use some professional governance guidance can do so. Right?
So I see this is like a two-sided market. Like I see from the developer point of view, like I've got some great idea for an app, but I would never do it because it's just such there be monsters. Like I have some semblance of responsibility, and so I think to myself, yeah, this would be super cool, and yeah, like everyone would be into it, but like I'm not gonna so-called experiment in production. So I'm just not gonna do it because and then I've got users, like as a DeFi user, I'm not a very active user. The main reason I'm not an active user is because I'm a busy guy. I've got a lot of things to pay attention to, and they're only my mental shortcuts will only take me so far. So I'm like, did Trail of Bits audit this, or did some like unknown little guy audit this smart contract, and how much money am I actually willing to lose to make 10% annualized or something, right? So like it means the end result is that I don't use a lot of new, especially new DeFi products,
right?
And I'm missing out. I really want to take advantage of those things. But what I see here is contrasting with build it and they will come on the Ethereum side. Like I see this as being like unavoidably attractive to both sides of the market, because if I've got like a sweet new idea for an app and I want to go and I want to launch it fast because I really want to get that market, having the guarantees that come with having the components already built out of the box, I'm just going to piece them together in whatever novel combination.
Exactly.
Give it a name, some fruit or something or a food, and launch it, and people are going to flock to it. And because they're not going to have to, I don't know, they're going to say, they're using Agoric components, we know that this is going to be solid, and why. And after a bit of education and the way I see it is results comparing, like, we haven't seen hacks here at all. right? We see all this new innovation, and you get all the things that come with it, right? Cheap transaction fees, access to Ethereum markets, right? And data. So I see it as being like this thing that's really needed. And as soon as it gets plugged in, there's kind of this osmosis. I think we'll see like value just transferred. Is this like, what is this as a vision? Does this like resonate with what you're trying to do?
Oh yes.
Absolutely. And this is the bridge to fintech developers, right? People that are not quite degenerate enough to launch a DeFi project, but they see this, they can understand what an AMM does and why it's so revolutionary and want to come in and build something new. This is the way you reach those people. And I think in part also, we've talked about security from the aspect of you can import code and it's been battle tested already. There's also a lot that Agoric is doing to make sure that as you're actually writing the code for the first time, you can reason more clearly about its security properties. And Dean, I don't know if you want to go into offer safety or anything like that, but that's a big part of what we're building and what we're spending our time thinking about as well.
Yeah.
And if you want to go into it, try whatever you can do for the, like, I subscribe to the Richard Feynman approach. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
That's right. Actually, I will first continue my example of the governance component, because simply partitioning risk is a huge, huge win. So in the case of I grab someone's governance code and compile it into my application, now not only could that code help me with governance, it could take my private keys and send them to someone in a different country, right? Why it had access to my private keys, I don't know. It's because the frame or my balances in my contract. It's because of the framework of most software infrastructures, including Ethereum, including Rust compiled to WASM, all those kinds of things. In our model of the world, it comes in, it's got access to the governance thing. It could, be buggy governance and say yes when it was only 51% instead of 2/3, or 40% or whatever, or treat Clayton's vote as absolute, so it could cheat on governance. But nothing it can do can get to my balances. Nothing it can do can cause a transaction that steals my money. Nothing it can do can change, the interest rate from what it is now to something other than the number we're voting on, right? And so that kind of partitioning is just a huge risk reduction.
So at the surface, like this may seem like really unsexy, but because it's like for the average user, like, okay, what, like, but this is the thing, is that the way that we operate with all of these new with these new smart contracts and applications, is that we kind of are just like, okay, I'll put a whole bunch of money in it. And other people did, I'll put some more money in there. Maybe it'll be okay, right? Maybe I'll get some insurance to help. But like having things built well from the ground up, that means that that things aren't going to touch other things that shouldn't be touched. I mean, this is why we use a ledger, right? Because I want to sign transactions easily, to make quick trades and that sort of thing, but I shouldn't. But the thing that I use to sign those transactions shouldn't be accessible to anyone on the internet. Well, how do you do that? Well, the private key never leaves this device ever. And so, like, in the same way, I guess that's what you're saying here, that some things are sacred. They don't need to be touched. Right. They just need to get the information, only the information that's needed. Right. This is the promise of other things in blockchain tech, right? Where it's like, I shouldn't have to give up where I live and my phone number and all this stuff just so that I can get a newsletter or something, right? You just need my email address, and you need some sort of guarantee that I'm a real person or something.
That
right? Or
basic principle of security is principle of least authority, right? Components, and the question is, can you actually make isolated components, which we can and most people can. Components should only have the authority they need to get their job done and no more. And if you just do that sort of architecturally, if that's just the default of how things plug together, now you dramatically reduce the overall vulnerability without even having to worry about it. It's just it sort of naturally falls out. Now, there will still be security vulnerabilities, but the key thing about these kinds of safety properties, and we talk about this as a safety property, and offer safety is another one, which I'll talk about in a moment. When memory safety came out, it's not that the bugs moved around. right? It's that 80% of your bugs were simply off the table because you were using Java or C# or JavaScript or Ruby or one of these things, or Rust or what have you. Whereas in C, you have memory bugs and buffer overruns and all this kind of crap. Those just went away, right? And that's just a huge win in terms of improving your overall safety without really having a big, without impairing your ability to actually program. What it means is you could move more quickly because you don't have to worry about that class of problems. And that's exactly, and being able to grab components. I'm hearing background noise, by the way. Being able to grab components and plug them together means you get to move quickly because you didn't have to build those components. And that's, again, why some infrastructures you see exponential growth of developers and some you don't.
Yeah, and just to sum that up, I from a user perspective, it's hard for us to construct examples for why it's so important because they feel like toy examples. But from a developer's perspective, if you're deciding whether to bring external code into your contract, the question is, do I know for a fact that that code cannot possibly do something bad? And if you know for a fact that it can't, that's a much different thing than I think that it can't because I've read it and I believe that it won't. And the difference between that level of surety is what allows things to grow quickly, and that's what will enable what we're trying to do.
So it's more sure-footed steps. People can move a lot quicker because the ground they're stepping on, they don't have to be constantly evaluating what they're building on. And like I just know the difference between when I use an interface, like when I use a well-made interface to send a transaction, versus whether I'm typing it into a command line. Like, did I put every little thing in? It's like, if you have a good interface that's like my crypto or whatever, that's like well made, I just know I'm going to send this. It's going to go where I need it to go. I don't need to think a lot about it. It means that I can do this in 30 seconds instead of 10 minutes, and it just burns. It uses a lot less mental.
I characterize a lot of the user interface stuff in current crypto, and this now I'll talk about the offer safety thing. I characterize it as, send money to a random number and hope something good happens. Right. And it was funny is we're working with Dan Finley of MetaMask, and I got him to put together the slide that actually used his addresses where, you go through, I want to send money to Dan. And what I'm actually doing is send money to 0x943 something. Right. And then you go to Uniswap and you do the same thing. I'm going to trade this token for that token, and it's this amount, and it does the estimation and all this stuff. I push a button, and the approval that comes up is, send 8 ETH to 0xA47. I don't know. Is that the right thing? And, we saw, who was it? The guy that runs Nexus Mutual, he got, a bunch of random numbers. It's like, well, those look right. Those look right. Well, it turns out one of them was not right, but several of them were, and it's just totally unreasonable for him to, for a human to be expected to operate with him. It's like using a spreadsheet where, to name a cell, you have to use the hex address of the memory, of the location in memory that number is going to be at. It's just nuts, right? So our model of the world that then pervades all sort of elements of our, everything above Tendermint, right? The elements of how we build our framework, and then it also goes all the way out to the UI and the wallets. Is I don't want to just send money. I want, business is quid pro quo, right? I will give you this money if you give me that concert ticket, right? And so our contract framework is such that, again, instead of sending money to the contract and then it's going to decide what to do and maybe it'll give your money back, or if it's an auction, maybe you're the winner, maybe you're the loser, but I'm going to keep your money anyway, and a bug can steal your money. Instead, that money goes into the contract framework itself, right? This thing we call Zoe. So that now the contract knows, there's cash on the barrelhead sitting there available to you, Mr. Contract, if you provide the concert ticket to it, right? And now if there's an auction for this concert ticket, there might be 100 bids, but the only way the contract, it knows how much is there, it knows what it can do, it knows all the bidders, or it knows rather, what the offers are. The only thing it can do to get that money is give that concert ticket to one of those bids, one of those offers, right? And so so a buggy auction could award it to the wrong party in exchange for less money than they could have gotten, but the infrastructure itself will prevent them from taking more money than the offer specified, and will only let them take the money if they present the other side, if they present the want of that offer. Right?
So two counterparties can lean on the system itself as a way of arbitrating that exchange so that you don't have to worry about what as much about the smart contract that you're dealing with. You rely on the system, on the broader Agoric system to do it.
And the developer of the smart contract can rely on it too.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. And so, like type safety, it doesn't solve all your problems, but it makes a category of them non-issues. We look at various exploits we see in Ethereum, and some of it was inspired by that exploit. That ought to be impossible, right? That's not a human mistake. That's not a human. Right. The problem with Ethereum is security experts have repeatedly rolled out contracts that seem like they're valuable, and they lose tens of millions of dollars in minutes with no recourse. These are smart people. If they can't get it right, there is no way you get millions of developers to get this right? And so you look at these and go, that one shouldn't be possible. That one, okay, maybe that was dumb, right? But that one, those 8. That shouldn't have been possible.
It shouldn't even be possible at a system, at a design.
Yeah. You shouldn't be able to write code that could cause that bug without really working at it, right?
Right.
So, I mean, several things it takes your money and some third party comes and drains it. Well, the contract shouldn't be in a position such that a bug would allow it to get rid of the money that it was obligated to only take if it gave you some other thing. Now, there are plenty of things that does not cover. Like in the auction case, it could award the auction to the second highest bidder. And the second highest bidder gets a bargain because the second highest bidder will never have to pay more than what they bid. But and so the auction failed as being a good auctioneer, but it couldn't steal anybody's money for, that they weren't willing to provide, right?
Right. And so at the developer level, this probably makes sense to a lot of people who are familiar with this kind of development. But for anybody else that's not a developer, I think that what we're looking at here is a lot of the assumptions that we make and a lot of the trepidatious stepping that we do when we use existing DeFi applications. I think what I see as a future is that it'll be almost dangerous or irresponsible to put your money where we're putting them now. It's kind of like the way people drove without seatbelts back in the day because that's how it was done, right? But people died and we accepted that and then gradually it became unacceptable for people to fly through a windshield because it doesn't need to happen. It's a very simple device, and so at first glance you think to yourself okay, developer speak, blah, blah, blah. But I think what we should be hearing here is that this is DeFi. These are DeFi seatbelts that you can still drive your car as fast as you did before, and it'll be as exciting as it ever was before, but a new kind of excitement, not will I fly through a windshield?
Yes,
right?
I use the phrase, DeFi as sort of the next frontier of finance. Like most frontiers, it's exciting but dangerous. We want it to be more exciting and still less dangerous, right? So it's a little bit the analogy of seatbelts, but let's go farther than that. And now we're talking racing harness, right? I can drive a lot faster if I'm in a racing harness and have a roll cage, right?
Yeah.
And so I can drive both faster and I'm safer, And there might be some effort the driver has to do to put on the racing harness, and you have to do a little more to build the, but that the roll cage was provided by the infrastructure, and so everyone gets to get, so now we can all move more quickly. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like people died in carriages all the time. They're really dangerous, but looking back, it's how exciting are carriage races really, and the DeFi the DeFi creation space is cornered by a few big players who were either willing to take huge risks, don't sleep at night, have tons of resources to be able to build. So they're kind of it's almost like a cult of personality where people are oh, so-and-so is going to make the next Yearn vault, or it's a super exciting or whatever. But these things aren't because the foundation and the substrate that they're growing in is so hostile. They're the only ones that can survive in this space, right? So it's kind of oh, it's amazing, but if the environment that they were growing these things in, these products in, was what we're talking about now, you wouldn't need that. You wouldn't need to be a polymath prodigy with no amygdala, right, to make this stuff and tons of money. You could see way more innovation coming from a kid tinkering in a university kid tinkering or something, right, rather than some of the titans that are in the DeFi space right now.
Well, so absolutely, university kids. One of the reasons we love JavaScript, and it turns out, in many ways, it's actually more securable than most programming languages, or pretty much all other programming languages. Total accident of history that's true, but it is both the language usage itself, Node.js, which crossed a billion downloads last year, and several of the libraries, they all had grassroots growth and explosion into dominance, right? And that's because it enabled lots of programmers to kind of just get it done, just do it themselves, cobble stuff together, but easily build using components that other people build, right? That's a huge ingredient. But one of the things, I want to go back to something that Rowland mentioned earlier, or actually you were talking about how, you weren't ready to get into this, 10% yield, whatever thing, because it was a little too, strange and edgy. You couldn't figure out what's going on. My previous job to running Agoric was building as it turns out, multi-billion-dollar payment instrument as typical fintech. And one of the things that I observed in the world of fintech development is there's a lot of entrepreneurial developers, right? Every single person I talk to, in everyone we hired in our company, everyone we talked to in companies we bridged to, all the evangelists they were all very entrepreneurial. Often it was, what am I doing with my Saturday? If they didn't have a consulting gig, then they were designing the next thing that they might want to do at their next startup. And it's not that they were all going to start companies. It's that they all had some service that they wanted to roll out, or that they would work with someone to build, and they'd carry it off and they'd go off and do the next thing. But they've got a lot of options, right? I mean, not stock options, which is a lot of opportunities in different directions. I mean, they have stock options too, right? And they've got a lot of energy, and they're gamified. They understand financial trade-offs and financial technology. They understand financial opportunity, and they go in and look at blockchain, and they bounce because the
barrier to entry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can in JavaScript add an enhancement to the Bloomberg terminal to let me do another leverage kind of what's-a-who's-it, right? And so, why am I going to climb the cliff to learn this weird programming language that doesn't really have great development tools or debugging
and
tools?
You lose everyone's money, right?
Yeah, it's like when I have all these other opportunities, and it might actually be that blockchain would be a better opportunity, but they've got 8 hours on a Saturday when the family happened to be off at an amusement park to really get something done, and they've got 6 opportunities in front of them, only one of which is blockchain. Right? So the barrier to entry is pretty high because of all their opportunities and because they've been just all over these opportunities. Being able to use existing development tools, standard development processes and practices, languages they already understand, connect to systems they already understand. There's an untapped potential for people that really are financially motivated, entrepreneurial, think about new kinds of finance applications that lowering that ramp means more of them will come across the bridge, over into this space, and they will bring new opportunities for existing DeFi investors, existing DeFi traders, new ability to go, oh, they're doing that. Oh, yeah, isn't that cute? They didn't, we did that 50 years ago. Here's the opportunity there. I'm going to take their lunch and then do it right. Or what have you. And there's a lot of really smart people in DeFi, but some of them, are getting away with things that don't work in the real world because other players know how to extract the value from them. And so there's going to be an interesting mix. And, all of this will turn into all of this will grow much faster and bridge to the mainstream markets and the mainstream capital pools much faster if we, if we've got more of those developers enabled to be able to contribute.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, we talk about barrier to entry, but the moats around certain languages as well is JavaScript education is $1 billion industry. And then if you get out of that, then you're offered a job at a very nice company getting top 10% salary of whatever country you live in. So it's what's the point of trying something new? It's like, obviously pioneers won't give a shit, but then, eventually you need this like new group of people to actually start building at capacity.
Right. You can't tell me that there aren't people at Stripe, Robinhood, JP Morgan, all those places that don't have some really useful ideas and strong connections into financial that once they're, right now they're making plenty of money. Right.
Yeah. There needs to be a reason to attract them. Right. And it's like, if they see every time there's a new cohort entering into this tech, producing amazing products, and every time a new amazing product is built that makes it easier for new users, we'll see more new users. And it's kind of this interplay, right? I think this we need users, we need developers, we need new products, we need new, consumers. And so and this is like taking it to the next level every time, right? Like we will build amazing, innovative new products so that it's not just these like post-apocalyptic coding warriors, right?
Yeah.
More analogies.
Not how I would have characterized myself.
We're gonna have to steal a bunch of these phrases from you. This is.
I know.
But
racing harnesses, I'm totally all over.
I mean, I think people don't really get that. They're just kind of like waiting with bated breath for the next product that's delivered by the existing few who are bold enough and outfitted enough to work in the space. Yep. But like, let's face it, like there are people who want to build, who like you said, have really great ideas, who are specialized, but so specialized that they don't really. I don't want to run blockchain infrastructure. I don't want to figure out how to know every nuance of like potential code problems. They don't touch it from the outset. Right. And if you and so it's the same way. You've got these application specific blockchains launching. We've got Terra. We've got like other Akash and stuff where you don't need to build it from scratch again. You could just focus on your amazing thing that you're building, right? And it's in the same way now. Instead of I don't need to rally up validators and bootstrap an ecosystem, I could just plug in. So now you can have someone who's like even more specialized, who's like really good at making like some futuristic financial product that's gonna like turn crypto users on their heads, attract all kinds of new users, right? And they're going to build like amazing interfaces, user interfaces, like instead of like kind of beating that dead horse of being like crypto is just so awful to interact with. It's also developing in crypto is so awful. I think that this is Andre, the person who everybody is kind of excited about, has written a number of articles saying about how nightmarish it is working in this space. Like this is a guy who's tenacious and clearly gifted, and even he's like wonders, sits down and scratches his head and wonders what the hell he's doing. So if we can make that environment better, instead of just being like developers need to make better UIs, like or UXs, like we need to make better platforms for developers to make, so it's easy to do that, right? And this is what I see here. Yeah.
And the other thing is that the other kind of innovation that's really important and kind of underrated is a lot of innovation is incremental. Right, as I said, that example of stop loss against existing AMMs, that's an incremental enhancement that could really be valuable to a lot of people. If in order to roll out that enhancement, I need to stand up a whole new chain and a whole new interop infrastructure to Ethereum, that's a crazy amount of work for something that should be 20 lines of code, right? And so by having these pluggable pieces, now more developers can contribute where they've got an idea that is good and useful, but not enough of a differentiator to stand up a whole new business, right? And so they can contribute. The Sunny's chain coming out, which is an AMM, workbench thing. Well, once you've got some cool idea, okay, great. Now I've got an AMM. I would like to apply that into a few minor innovations in a vault architecture that leverages these innovations in an AMM, and plugs them together. What does it take to do that little increment and this little increment over here so I can do automated liquidation, or I have rate limited liquidation service? All of those, one person could do the rate limited liquidation service, and now I plug that into my slightly improved, vault mechanism that I just upgrade that facet of, and now we've got things that instead of I have to, innovate in AMM by slurping a bunch of liquidity out of the number one AMM. Instead, here's a new component. I'll make a little bit if you guys adopt it, and now it can plug in and everyone benefits, and we have less partitioning of liquidity and all those kinds of things. That, incrementalism is powerful and very complementary to here's a brand new thing that you didn't used to be able to do yesterday. And those work together well.
And this is the Web3 vision. Like, this is what we expect. We don't expect everybody to hold 1,000 tokens and be checking in on every single thing. Like, it should just be, the way the internet kind of works, right? But more and better, right?
Right. So, and I don't want to go from a banking hegemony to a compound hegemony. I want multiple different services that have to compete on an even footing, all vying to provide me better, safer, faster enhancement of my money. So having innovation and having enough of an economy that multiple players are successful instead of, as you say, these it's all dramatic entrances and exits. That's where we'll be. I like both, right? I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I like big explosive new things, and I enjoy building them. I enjoy other people building them and explaining them and connecting to them and all that. But but the economy has a spectrum of those things, and our goal is more inclusive so that more people can cooperate in more ways. I want the cooperative world that engenders, and that means, lots of routine, boring things. If we can make those smart contracts and automate them, we still end up in a much better, safer world. Right?
So you can focus on things that are like actually exciting, that because you want them to be exciting, right? So we talked a lot about like what an Agoric ecosystem looks like, but maybe we could take a few minutes to talk about a little bit more about like what about Agoric itself. Like it's Agoric's using the Cosmos SDK. But it's clearly going to be different from the Cosmos Hub. This is the AST token, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the
temporary name. Yes,
the temporary boring name. New names coming soon.
Oh, okay. So Agoric token. What's an Agoric token doing? Why do we have an Agoric token? I mean, we're clearly there'll be staking to secure the network. How's it different from what the hub's doing?
So key thing that any chain should answer, key question it should answer is how does value accrue to the staking token? Right, and that's not because of profitability reasons or revenue reasons or making investors happy, though that's always nice. It's that for a proof of stake chain, it better be the case that the value of your staking token grows with the size of the economic activity that it's protecting. Right. Otherwise, if I'm doing $10 billion of activity on a $1 billion network, then, there's $9 billion worth of bribes I can use to buy up control of the network in order to commit, various crimes against consensus. Right. And so the key difference in architecture of the overall Agoric economy is that it's designed so that the value that flows to the staking token is not just did transactions happen or not just did messages get sent, because that's sort of like charging for postage, right? And postage is important, but it's a very small fraction of my budget as a business.
It's operational costs, right? It's not the actual value that's being transacted.
Right.
And so what we do is that the reward flows from the economic activity. That there is DeFi integrated throughout all levels of the chain, right? So there's our platform, and then we build our platform to make these DeFi abstractions like a treasury, like an AMM, and so forth, and then we integrate them into the overall architecture. And so the fees from trading in that AMM, the fees from minting the local currency, the local stable coin that you pay for execution, you pay for services, you pay for reservations of names, you pay for whatever, the fees from that flow into the rewards to the validators. So the validators, or to the stakers, right? So that the reward is proportional, the design is it's proportional to the economic activity, not proportional to how many messages you send.
Okay, so if I'm an Agoric token holder, I'm going to stake, I can expect to get a proportion of all of the economic activity that the Agoric from the Agoric ecosystem. And the benefit, of course, to the Agoric ecosystem is that I get to launch my amazing new app really quickly with a lot of strong guarantees on all fronts, and innovate it quickly on it, and users get to use it comfortably. And then, what you pay for that, that's going to anyone who's staking this token, that guarantees that all of this will work as expected.
Exactly. And I never use the word guarantees, but yes.
Provide strong guarantees.
Guarantee, in blockchain, there better be the assets there to pay out any of these. Sorry.
But this is part of that guarantee, right? Part of the strength of the guarantee is because it's all being secured by economic capital. However, the strength of your guarantees is dependent on how valuable the asset is that's being staked. And so it's like intrinsic in here. That it's inherent that the value of this token needs to be capturing, and this makes sense for human behavior, but it also makes sense for the logic of how the system runs.
Exactly. And the other thing that applications that are deploying gets, is economies work. Local economies have a local currency, so that when I go to the market, I can compare prices between multiple vendors. I can, the pricing of going to the local mall and buying a, option against some stock here and hedging it over there and buying insurance there, because that's what you do at the mall, right? The ability to trade off the price of that insurance versus that, Nexus Mutual kind of thing versus hedging it over there or buying I want to be able to compare those easily, as opposed to every time I go, okay, so which currency do you take? Okay, and what's the exchange rate? Because I know it's not quite 1-to-1, so I'll do, am I getting screwed here? Or having an economy, a place where there are multiple businesses that can all interoperate with each other and present a consistent interface to the user and provide posted prices and all these things that we know grease the wheels of commerce. That's one of the key elements. And so again, these businesses benefit from, I can roll it out and not have to worry about, which of the 16 currencies should I be taking? It's like, no, convert them all local, relatively low, collateralization and fee to be able to do that. Do your local transactions, take your rewards back to Ethereum or Cosmos Hub or Tardigrade or wherever it is you're taking your results to, right? And but the ability to have participated in the innovation that we were able to pile up on our chain, can be available to people not just on our chain but people elsewhere.
So are you envisioning almost like a app store for Agoric from like a end user perspective?
So I can neither confirm. So the answer is twofold. One is not an app store in the permission sense. Mm-hmm. It is crucial from sort of both philosophically and from our perspective, architecturally and regulatory, from a regulatory point of view.
Yeah,
and so
outside all of the negative aspects of like centralized app store, obviously. Definitely that kind of thing. You could imagine being of value. What are the entry points for new people coming to the ecosystem? Mm-hmm. People that already know their way around, they don't need that, right? So part of the idea there is you would like there to be able to be multiple sources of curation, and people can opt into whichever one they find valuable. But obviously, there'll be some default set of curations as you come in as a new user that gets you a start.
And there will be the components that are part of our core protocol, which obviously are sort of privileged in certain ways, but also include code that people can reuse in their own applications, right? So if you have a different vault kind of thing you want to do, if you have a different AMM kind of thing you want to do, we'll have examples that you can launch.
Right. Mm-hmm. But if you don't want to bother with governance and you just want to use the same governance module that we use for actually voting on chain governance, install that plugin, connect it to your token, and you're off to the races, right? Doesn't mean you get to control the governance of the chain, because that's a separate authority, right? But you can reuse the components.
Yeah.
Just being mindful of time here.
Yeah, we're at an hour. Do y'all still want to keep talking, or should we start wrapping it up?
We did, next, we should do it again. We should talk a little bit more. Something we didn't even touch on, NFTs. I know that you've got some probably exciting stuff to talk about there. I mean, DeFi is super hot, but like NFTs are really coming up, and I know that you've got some really cool ideas there. So
Yes.
maybe we could like continue this conversation.
I would love to continue this conversation. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing schedule another one, or would you like to continue now?
Yeah, we can continue right now.
You want to continue? Sure, we can talk. What's on the menu for NFTs?
Well, okay.
So Rowland, how are you doing for time?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Yeah, okay,
I have the same meeting now that Dean does, so we're both gonna miss it.
And your whole team's in the channel, so they're probably
Yeah,
well.
it's
So
all good,
yeah,
all good.
okay, cool.
I bet there are some that are off coding. Just like I've heard Dean.
It's a growing team. So what's on the menu for NFTs?
Well, okay. So
I should preface for anyone who doesn't know, an NFT, non-fungible token. The idea is that like Ether or like Atom or whatever asset, they're all exactly the same. So like if I have an Atom or you have an Atom, like it doesn't really matter where that Atom originated. There are no special properties. NFTs are tokens that are that are unique. So none of them are the same. It's like your house is not the same as the house next door. So you wouldn't just say, I don't care which house I have. This is the same way, same kind of thing, right?
okay. So and just I only have a few minutes here. So I'm just going to tease you on NFTs, and we should really plan to continue another time.
Okay.
So in our we have example dApps in our system as part of the development. It's all open source. People can grab it. Come to GitHub Agoric and get it. There are NFT examples. Kate Sills, one of our main developer on the contract framework. She built an NFT application in a day. We're creating an NFT, a new NFT. It's just one more line of JavaScript code. I want to be able to mint new tokens. I want to mint new tokens that are all distinct from each other. They have the following structure. We're off to the races. And so building NFTs is really easy in this framework. The overall protocol for being able to do trading and exchange, all of Zoe, it equally applies to NFTs. And I think we should probably leave that as sort of a starting point for our next round of conversation. Since our really is heads down on development of getting this stuff done, getting back to the engineering team that they're starting to get antsy here. I probably need to do it.
Okay.
Thank you for taking this time out for us.
Yeah, definitely. Let's definitely schedule another one. And like maybe we can have an AMA in our Telegram channel for more like specific need to know information when mainnet approaches for Agoric token holders, not AST.
I think there's an incentivized testnet coming up. There's a lot to be excited about to start to like play with a lot of the stuff. If you're a developer, if you're a staking service provider, a hobbyist, there's a lot to kind of take in here. And I'm personally really excited about this protocol to launch, and I really see it as see the long vision here. I know we're in like a boom cycle right now, so everything is worth paying attention to. But I'm looking forward to seeing Agoric take us to the next level beyond just bull market excitement.
We have to tell Gavin every now and then in meetings. We have to go like, we get it. You like Agoric, dude. All right, but yeah, definitely. We are super excited about the project, and we look forward to talking again. But we'll stop wasting your time now.
Yep. Thank you guys so much, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Yeah, same.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dean.
See ya.
Bye, Clay.